John Porcari, former Deputy Secretary of Transportation, now heading up the Gateway Project, which is exciting to hear. What did you get out of the hearing today, and do you feel like we're getting closer to getting your project going up there?
Well, we're making real progress on Gateway. I like to describe Gateway as the most urgent infrastructure project in America. We have a 106-year-old bridge and a 106-year-old tunnel, both of which are single points of failure for 10% of America's gross domestic product. Both of which opened while the Titanic was still under construction. And while Orville and Wilbur Wright were making the big transition from the Model A flyer to the Model D flyer. So we've gotten a lot of use out of the bridge and the tunnel. We desperately need to augment them with a new bridge and new tunnel. What came across clearly in the tunnel, in the discussion today about the tunnel and the bridge, is the urgency of this project and how important high-speed rail is as a system. So every component of the system has to work. From Boston to Washington, in this example, that one bridge and that one tunnel are single points of failure that stop the whole corridor. So clearly, the kind of investments that we haven't made for generations in rail are coming back to haunt us, and the ability to do some renewal and rebuilding and new facilities is an investment that pays off for the future. So think about the specific Gateway Bridge and tunnel, the existing one. It was probably not even your parents or grandparents that paid for that. It was your great-grandparents. The replacement projects that we're talking about today will be there for your great-grandchildren. This is an investment in a better future.
So it's great you're doing it. So technically what we should be doing every generation that we should be investing. We shouldn't have skipped 2 or 3 generations, because now it's going to cost more, take longer.
That's exactly right.
We could have collapses and major problems.
It's exactly right. And who in their right mind today would design a single point of failure where you have 2 tracks in the very busiest part of the Northeast Corridor, one of the busiest train corridors in the world? It goes down to 2 tracks, so the straw is its smallest where you need it the most, and no redundancy. There's no alternative route. If anything happens to those 2 tracks, the tunnel, the bridge, or anything in between, there's nothing you can do. So that's not how you build an economy for the future. And think about where the New York metro area would be today if 106 years ago they had not opened that to service. It wouldn't be the economy it is today.
We wouldn't have America as we exist today.
We wouldn't.
We wouldn't have the highway system. We wouldn't have any of these.
And while we like to whine and complain about public investments and the cost of them, in a much more difficult economy, in some really hard times, when the standard of living was a fraction of what it is today, they invested in those facilities. The least we can do is do the same and pay it forward.
And the returns have delivered hundreds of times over.
The returns aren't over 10 or 20 or 30 years, they're over 100 years, or more than 100 years in this case. So today's
the return was significantly higher than the investment.
The return is probably orders of magnitude more than they thought at the time, because it's been a working facility that's just today is serving 450 trains a day and 200,000 passengers a day, and it's done that for over 100 years.
Consistently. All right, well, great. Thanks for your leadership. We look forward to helping do everything we can to help get these things moving.
Great to see you.
Thanks.
All right. Good morning, Chairman Denham, Ranking Member DeFazio, Ranking Member Capuano, and members of the subcommittee. My name is John Porcari. I'm the Interim Executive Director of the Gateway Program Development Corporation. The Gateway Corporation is the federal state entity created to carry out one of the most important and urgent infrastructure projects in the United States, the Gateway Project. The 450-mile Northeast Corridor is the busiest rail corridor in the country, and the busiest section of this corridor is the part around New York City. Heading out of Manhattan to the northeast toward Boston, there are 4 tracks, which gives the system redundancy to allow maintenance to be performed and to respond to incidents. Unfortunately, in the other direction, where trains travel under the Hudson River to New Jersey and eventually to Washington, this is not the case. There are just 2 tracks. Any issues here, even minor ones, cause major problems for the corridor. There is no alternative route. The Gateway program of projects is designed to address this deficiency. The section from Penn Station in New York to Newark, New Jersey is the most densely used piece of track in the United States and one of the most densely used in the world. It can host nearly 1,200 train movements per day. Unfortunately, it's also very old and in need of urgent repair and expansion. The existing tunnels under the Hudson River were completed in 1910 while the Titanic was still under construction and while the Wright brothers were transitioning from their Model A to their Model B airplane. The tunnel's age is reason enough for them to be comprehensively refurbished. But compounding that is during Hurricane Sandy in 2012, they flooded, worsening their already precarious situation. In addition to the two-track tunnel, this section of track contains the Portal Bridge over the Hackensack River in New Jersey, the busiest train bridge in the Western Hemisphere. This two-track swing bridge also dates from 1910, and because of its low clearance over the water, it must be open to allow boats to pass. What we are calling Phase 1A of the Gateway program is the replacement of this aging bridge. The design, all environmental reviews, and permitting are completed, and we're just awaiting the last piece of funding. Pre-construction work on this new bridge site, such as building an access road and retaining walls, will be underway this summer. Amtrak has committed its funding for the new bridge, and the local partners, New Jersey Transit and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, have committed theirs. With everything else in place, we're awaiting word from the U.S. Department of Transportation on whether the project will be awarded a Federal Transit Administration capital investment grant for core capacity that we applied for last fall. Award of these funds will be the last piece of the puzzle, and then construction will be able to start on the bridge. Let me emphasize that the technical assistance and coordination by the Department of Transportation has been extraordinary, and this first component of the Gateway project would not be ready for construction without DOT's assistance. We're simultaneously moving forward with Phase 1B, which is construction of a new two-track tunnel under the Hudson River. The plan is to quickly build these two new tracks under the Hudson, and once they're open, to close each of the existing 106-year-old tunnels in turn for repairs. Closing one of these tunnels for repairs without the new tunnel in place would reduce throughput of trains during rush hour by 75% due to the need to run trains in both directions on the remaining track. When the entire Gateway program is completed, including subsequent phases, there will be a fully functional four-track railroad all the way from Newark, New Jersey to New York Penn Station, and enough track and platform capacity in Penn Station in New York to accommodate decades of future travel growth. Work is currently underway to finish the environmental impact statement for the tunnel phase of the work. I'm pleased to say that we're on an aggressive 24-month schedule for completion of the EIS, which is less than half the time that was typical for projects of this kind just a few years ago. With the help of USDOT, we'll release a draft EIS this month for the tunnel, and a final EIS, record of decision, and a Corps of Engineers Section 404 permit simultaneously by March 2018. In addition to giving us an urgently needed transportation project that eliminates a single point of failure for 10% of America's gross domestic product, this project serves as an example of how environmental reviews for even complex, expensive projects can be expedited without any compromise to environmental outcomes. In the coming weeks, we'll be holding an industry forum to solicit input from private sector experts about how they believe the tunnel project can be most efficiently delivered. We're looking to tap into the best thinking from the private sector about how to get the tunnel project built quickly and cost effectively. This will be followed by a request for information process. We're actively evaluating design build and public-private partnerships, for example, for the tunnel. Despite the strong cooperation that's already in place between the national, state, and local stakeholders, it's not realistic to think that an infrastructure project of this magnitude can succeed without an appropriate federal financial commitment. A project of national significance like Gateway requires this combined federal, state, local commitment. As we all know, America has huge infrastructure needs, and it's heartening to see that this subcommittee recognizes that rail is an important part of the equation. Just as our parents and grandparents, and in the case of the existing 106-year-old Gateway Bridge and Tunnel, our great-grandparents designed, built, and paid for the transportation infrastructure that's literally the foundation of our current economy, in much more difficult circumstances than we're experiencing today, we have to do the same for the benefit of our children and generations to come. I would submit there's no more urgent infrastructure project in the country than Gateway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to testify, and I look forward to answering any questions.